All right, I think we're ready to go to get started. There might be a few more trickling in, but we'll start on time here. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all so much for being here today and for taking the time to join us for the kickoff of St. Croix County Family Treatment Court. It's really great to see so many people here together in one room. We had a great turnout for the event. Just a brief introduction, my name is Jessica Dodge. I'm the Child Protection Supervisor in St. Croix County here. I also oversee our Family Treatment Court grant, and I'll help kind of keep the agenda moving today. For time's sake, we're not going to go around and do introductions. I do just want to kind of highlight how many different people and partners we have in the room here today. We have obviously our Family Treatment Court team. We have Judiciary, Corporation Counsel, District Attorney, Public Defender's Office, Guardian Ad Litems, Child Protection, people from all over, Health and Human Services within the county, internal and external substance use providers, public health, probation, law enforcement, probate, child support, CASA, Family Resource Center, peer support, recovery housing, jail staff, county administration, county board. The list goes on and on. So we also have Barron County and Dunn County Family Recovery Court representatives here, local healthcare leaders, and our DCF representative who our grant is administered through. So with that, I'll introduce Honorable Judge Waterman, who will serve as presiding judge over Family Treatment Court.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I have been a judge for more than 10 years now, and I have seen thousands of cases, most of which I don't remember, but there's always a few that stay with you. And there's one case in particular I want to share a little bit about. It happened in 2016. Police had executed a search warrant on a house. Inside, they found adults engaged in drug activity. The house was a mess. It was disheveled, food everywhere. There was plenty of meth and paraphernalia to go around, just sitting out in the open. This was no home for a child to live in. But there she was. Her name was Lexi. Of course, that's not her real name. But she was about 8 or 9 years old at the time. Blonde hair, cute little eyeglasses. She was quiet. She liked books, liked to draw, liked to color. I had been on the bench at that point for about a year, and I was assigned the child protection case. In all child protection cases, safety is the paramount concern. So Lexi was removed from that home, and Lexi's mother was ordered to undergo drug and alcohol treatment. Things didn't go as smoothly as I would have liked. Lexi's mom tried her best. I really believe that. She tried her best. She completed treatment, but she found recovery to be hard. It was hard to find a job. It was hard to find housing. It was hard to find sober friends. It was hard to stay sober. With each relapse, it reopened Lexi's mother's wounds of shame and guilt, the shame of being an addict, the guilt of using drugs at the expense of her daughter. Those scars were at times impenetrable, and it made it difficult for Lexi's mother to reconnect with her daughter and feel accepted with her own family and her community. Now, you may not know this, but in child protection cases, the children actually come to court. They participate. And Lexi attended nearly every case hearing, and I think she understood that things were not going very well with her mother, that she was struggling. And I would try to engage Lexi at time to time, but she was very quiet, reluctant to talk. But there was one time I asked Lexi if there was anything she wanted, anything she needed, anything you want. And frankly, I expected a child's answer. I expected a new toy or maybe a trip to McDonald's, something like that. But I remember her sitting there in the back, and she looked up from her book, looked me in the eye, and said, "I want my mom back." And you could have heard a pin drop in that courtroom. That despite all of the chaos and the neglect and the pain, Lexi still wanted her mom. So sadly, Lexi's case is quite common. Roughly 90% of our child protection cases involve drugs and alcohol as a substantial factor for the neglect. The parents, for the most part, are decent people. They love their children. They know what's right, but the disease of addiction has taken control of their lives. Their children have suffered, their family suffers as a result. And I think that's where a family treatment court can help. Family treatment court is an evidence-based concept. It is similar to an adult drug court, which have been proven effective at helping people to find long-term recovery and break free from the cycle of addiction in the criminal justice system. Family treatment court involves a team of dedicated professionals who take a holistic approach to the needs of the entire family, whatever those needs may be. Drug and alcohol treatment is a big part of it, but so are developing parenting skills, addressing mental health and physical health needs, developing sober supports, finding pro-social activities, gaining access to reliable transportation, stable housing, and meaningful employment. A family treatment court doesn't just provide access to services. It provides hope and encouragement. It helps people with support and accountability. It helps people develop a path toward long-term recovery and a strong, healthy family. Well, by the way, Lexi and her mother, they did reunite, but it was a long process and a much bumpier road than anybody had hoped. So it was about a year ago, almost a year to the date, that Jessica Dodge called a meeting, and she pitched the idea of a family treatment court here in St. Croix County. It's something that had been talked about from time to time, but it never really gained any traction. Now in life, timing is everything, and Jessica's timing was perfect. She secured grant money, and she found partners who were ready, willing, and able to roll up their sleeves and give it a go. So in the next couple of hours, you'll learn more about the Family Treatment Court. You'll learn how it works and who it serves. First, you will hear from Bob Rarrett. He is the director of the Health and Human Services Department in St. Croix County. He will talk about addiction science and the importance of supporting those who are in recovery. Next, you will hear from Kate Solinger. She is the treatment court coordinator, and she'll explain how it's going to work and who it's going to serve, give you the nuts and bolts of the program. Last, you will hear from a panel from Barron County, including Judge James Babler, who presides over the Barron County Recovery Court. We are very grateful for the advice and the support that we've received from Barron County. We are hoping that we'll be able to replicate their success here in St. Croix. So thank you all for attending. I really appreciate the enthusiasm and the interest in this program. And at this time, please welcome HHS Director Bob Rarrett.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you. Can I put this here?
You have to hold it up close to you.
No, you do. Does this work? All right. Let me put my glasses on. So good afternoon. Let me take them off again. So good afternoon. And I wanted to first thank all of you for being here. I know it took a tremendous amount of hard work and collaboration to get to this point today. Jessica asked me to speak this afternoon a little bit more about addiction, and I'll get into that in a second. We had a little bit of a scare yesterday. The federal government looked like it was going to cut $2 billion in substance use and mental health funding for nonprofits, and I don't know who else. But that was reversed in the last few hours, so as of now, we don't have $2 billion cut, which was a little bit unnerving the night before a kickoff event for Family Treatment Court. My background, my professional background is involved about 32 years of working in or around the area of addiction care. So I've worked in direct support roles, counselor roles, supervisor, director of programs. And over that time, my understanding of addiction has evolved. It's changed some. When I got my graduate degree in public health, that further expanded sort of to what the judge was talking about, a broader view of how addiction is impacted by other things, not just that person's immediate environment. So if I can just get right into it today, I want to spend a little time discussing what modern addiction science tells us, why Family Treatment Court is such an important response, and how St. Croix County is investing in strengthening families affected by substance use and some of the newer initiatives that we're starting. So to begin with, what is addiction? There was a quote I remember from, must have been 35 years ago or more, that stuck with me my whole professional and personal life. The quote is, "Alcohol gave me wings to fly, and then it took away the sky." That's what addiction is. I wrote more, though, about what it is, so I'll go into some more depth. But I thought that quote really captures what it feels like to suffer from addiction. More specifically, though, addiction is a chronic, progressive, and treatable disease that affects the brain. It's not a moral failing or lack of willpower or character flaw. Like other chronic health conditions, such as diabetes, heart disease, or asthma, it involves lasting biological changes, responds best to ongoing care, and often includes periods of improvement and sometimes setbacks. When we think about chronic illnesses, we understand that management matters, illness management. A person with diabetes may require medication, lifestyle changes, monitoring, and long-term support. If blood sugar levels rise, we don't blame the person. We adjust the treatment plan. Addiction works in much the same way. A recurrence of use does not mean treatment has failed. It often means the level or the dosage and type of care needs to change. Modern neuroscience helps us understand why addiction behaves this way. The human brain is designed to help us survive. It rewards behaviors that support survival, such as eating, connecting with others, caring for children, and experiencing pleasure. And it does this by releasing dopamine, a chemical messenger associated with motivation, reward, and learning. Alcohol and other drugs directly affect this reward system. They cause dopamine levels to increase more than everyday experiences typically do. Over time, the brain begins to associate substance use with an unusually strong sense of reward or relief. These repeated dopamine surges reinforce powerful learning within the brain, essentially teaching it that the substance is extremely important. As this continues, the brain adapts. The reward system becomes more sensitive and demanding, while the areas of the brain responsible for judgment, planning, impulse control, and weighing consequences becomes less effective. In simple terms, the part of the brain that says, "do it now," becomes stronger. The part of the brain that says, "slow down and think," grows weaker. This helps explain the behaviors we often see: continued use despite serious consequences, difficulty stopping even when someone desperately wants to, and choices that seem irrational or self-defeating from the outside. These behaviors are not about lack of caring or concern. They reflect real, measurable changes in brain function. Over time, people are often no longer using substances to feel good, but to feel normal or to avoid stress. Everyday rewards, the relationships, like relationships, work, or parenting, can feel less satisfying, while stress and emotional pain feel more intense. Recovery, therefore, is not simply about stopping use, it's about healing the brain, learning new coping skills, and rebuilding stability over time. These brain changes do not occur in isolation. Addiction is deeply influenced by social determinants of health, factors such as poverty, housing instability, limited access to health care, unemployment, social isolation, and chronic stress. Trauma also plays a significant role. Experiences such as childhood adversity, violence, neglect, unresolved loss can change how the brain responds to stress and increase vulnerability to substance use. For many, the brain responds to stress, for many individuals, substances initially serve as a coping strategy long before they become a problem. When parents are affected by addiction, children are also impacted, of course. Parenting capacity may be compromised, routines disrupted, and stress increased within the household. However, recovery strengthens families. Children do best when parents are supported in treatment, stress is reduced, and services are coordinated. Supporting parental recovery is one of the most effective ways to promote child safety and healthy development. This understanding is at the core of Family Treatment Court. Family treatment courts work because they align with science and experience and tell us what is effective. They combine structure with support, providing clear expectations, frequent monitoring, accountability, and access to coordinated services, while recognizing that meaningful change takes time. Family treatment courts start from the assumption that parents are capable of change when given the right supports. They do not excuse harmful behavior, but they respond in a way that reduces harm, improves stability, and promotes long-term recovery. I just want to briefly highlight a couple of initiatives at HHS that support parents with substance use and those that have an interest in recovery. In 2022, we partnered with Family Resource Center to begin Recovering Together cafes. They're monthly cafes held at the Services Center in New Richmond based on an evidence-based curriculum. And what they consist of is they're trained parents as peers facilitating alongside professional staff. We have at least one person here, Kyle. Kyle, there he is. Kyle facilitates these groups monthly.
We have some Marla from the
Where's-
Family Resource Center.
Oh, yeah, Marla? Oh, hi. I'm sorry. I missed you. So these cafes provide a structured, interactive recovery topic monthly while also providing meals and childcare and other incentives. And typical attendance, I believe, is about 10 to 12 families with their kids, their young kids. And the cafes offer an informal, community-based support option for parents working to strengthen their recovery and family connections. And there's no cost to participants. You can register, families can register for that through the Family Resource Center website. And the other thing I wanted to mention was in 2025, I believe, we created a new position embedding a substance use professional within our Children's Services Division. This role supports parents involved with child protective services when substance use is a factor, and the position's currently held by Kim Kitzberger. Where's Kim? There, hi. Kim will also play a role in Family Treatment Court while our Public Health Division designs and implements an evaluation plan to measure the outcomes. I'm almost done. Both initiatives, though, are funded through our opioid settlement funds that the county received, along with some matching funds from Vital Strategies, a global public health organization. And together, these efforts are designed to support recovery, strengthen family unity, and improve reunification outcomes. So at its heart, Family Treatment Court represents a shift toward responding to addiction with science, structure, and humanity. When we understand addiction as a chronic health condition, our questions change. Instead of asking, why won't they just stop? We ask, what supports are needed for recovery to succeed in this situation. Addiction changes the brain, but the brain can heal. With time, treatment, and support, families can recover, children can thrive, and communities can become stronger. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Our clicker isn't quite working, so I'm just going to get us caught up here on the PowerPoint. Of course, we tested it before and it worked just fine, but oh. There we go. Well, since I didn't have a chance to catch up here, just wanted everyone to know we're going to take a short 15-minute break at about 1:30, maybe a few minutes earlier. And then we will have a question and answer section at the end of the day today, kind of depending on time, and then we'll be wrapping up at 3 o'clock. All right. So next you'll hear from Kate Solinger, our Family Treatment Court coordinator, and she'll discuss and provide an overview of the program that we've created and discuss how it will operate in practice.
All right, well, crisis averted, so you don't have to only look at me. You can look at the screen also. All right, my name is Kate Solinger. I am the St. Croix County Treatment Court Coordinator. I have been running treatment courts for 8 years this month. Before that, it was in Minnesota, in smaller counties like Goodhue County, and then larger counties as in Dakota County, and which includes South St. Paul, and now in St. Croix. So our program overview, the nuts and bolts. So our oversight and governance will be our CJCC. And then the steering committee, we will directly get advice and all of that from them, which will be the child welfare subcommittee. Then it's our operational team, which is the hands-on every single day. So I am going to introduce them. That would be Judge Michael Waterman. I will be the coordinator, and then Corporation Counsel Anjali Patel, our guardian ad litem Teresa Beyer, substance use counselor is Kim Kitzberger, and our child protection caseworkers are Emily Anderson and Aubrey McAleer. All right. I actually got to click it, I guess. All right, our eligibility criteria in St. Croix County. You do have to be an adult, have a CHIPS case in St. Croix County, and diagnosed with a substance use disorder, I'm sorry. That also will be a contributing factor on why we have opened a case in CPS. That substance use needs to be identified as an ongoing concern in that case, and the ability to meet the requirements of our program. Are they able to drug test? Are they able to get around? Because this is a voluntary program, they do need to at least agree to the rules of our treatment court. Disqualifications, a history of severe violence. That can be that they have criminal charges or just that there was abuse in the home previously. Current and impending incarceration hinders participation. That would not in regular treatment court, but in here you can't participate while you're in custody. Participants that are ineligible for reunification. That is our primary goal here, is to reunify these families. If they don't want to agree to the family treatment court rules, they don't want to sign any of my releases that I need, not going to work. And reunification is not a permanency goal. Family treatment court is all about heavy case management. That's what they need. That's what the parents need. Phase 1 is all about stabilization. They're getting heavy case management from me from their caseworkers. Really, people will say, well, you're holding their hand. That's exactly what I'm going to be doing. Exactly what I'm going to be doing, at least in this first phase. That's what you have to do. I'm going to put Judge Nordstrand on the spot and ask you a question because I know your answer to this. When you have your CHIPS cases and you have your orders and these parents come in and you have ordered previously, you need to do this assessment and this and this and this. How often are none of those done? Is it often? Bingo. That's what we're doing. We're doing that case management. I'm holding their hand. Most people might say, why aren't they doing that? Why aren't they getting that assessment? The first thing that comes to your mind is going to be motivation. That's not the number one. It's not just because they don't have the motivation. So what Family Treatment Court is looking at is, could it be mental health related? Could it be trauma, anxiety? Why they can't even make that phone call? Or is it because they don't even have those life skills? We teach our kids, this is how you make a phone call. We teach them, this is how you hold the door open for people. What if they were never taught those things? So it's not just, oh, they don't have the motivation. There is something behind that. So we will handhold until they can do it on their own. That brings me to their assessments. They need to complete all of those, whatever they were recommended to do. Then we will create a case plan. That will mirror their CHIPS case plan, but it will be more specific. So those assessments that we're giving them risk and needs assessments, but really what I'm looking at is the need. Do they have antisocial personality? Do they have family issues other than just what's going on in their home? Their stability with finances, etc., all of those things. So we get very specific into those. Then we will go into wellness slips. So that would be kind of our incentive-based, what we're tracking for incentives. For a wellness slip, for these participants to receive one every single week, they have to do 4 things for us. That will be a treatment activity, whether that's a sober sport meeting, that's actually going to treatment. It might be in the beginning just making that assessment. Number 2 is a wellness activity. It needs to be self-related to them. It could be health-wise, going for a run, going for a walk, reading a book, something that's just for them, or getting a haircut. I haven't gotten a haircut in 3 months, and it makes me feel so good. That was a wellness activity just for that specific person. Then it will be a pro-social activity they have to accomplish. Getting out with like-minded people, doing something sober-related, going bowling, going on a hike with your family, or maybe it was actually just going to a family meal on a Sunday at mom and dad's house. The last one is a progression on their goal. So when we're going through their case plans, we're looking at what they need, and also they are setting goals. They could be small ones, they could be little ones. So when they want to phase up to phase 2, they have a list of all of these goals that they want to accomplish. So we have scheduled for them to move to phase 2. They need to pick some personal goals for themselves. Do you want to work on your empathy? Do you want to work on your patience? I think every parent will say they want to work on their patience. Self-care, motivation, they want to work on their apology processes. All of those things are just as important as treatment to us. If they get their wellness slip for that week, fabulous. We track that. If they get so many, they get to spin a wheel. That wheel is going to say, you get a family activity basket. Or they can say, hey, I have this many wellness slips, and I really need my car looked at. Can you help me? My kids need haircuts. They need new shoes for school. Those are the incentives that we are giving them. These participants also need to do bi-weekly court appearances. Those will be closed, of course, but they will be with our team and anybody supportive that they ask to be there with the permission of the courts. We will go through all the good things that happen to them, all the negative things that happen to them, and what they need from us. They will do weekly office visits with their caseworker and also myself. A big part that is missing on there is that needs to be parent initiated. In phase 1, that's going to be hard. Kind of like asking your husband multiple times why he hasn't made his doctor's appointment yet. Did you make that? Did you make that? Did you make that? We're gonna do that, and then hopefully in phase 2, they're comfortable enough that they don't need that prompting anymore. And hopefully your husband won't either. There'll be home visits. That's going to be part of their CHIPS case plan anyways, so a lot of this is going to mirror. They're going to mirror each other, but very different. And then a 10 p.m. curfew. Nothing happens good after 10 p.m. Or 8 if we're older than 30. All right. Well, I'm going the wrong way. All right, phase 2 is all about treatment and kind of wellness through treatment and personal growth. Bunch of the same things. They're going to be engaged in treatment, work on their wellness slips every single week, obtain a sponsor or a mentor. It can be a peer support specialist. It can actually be a sponsor, somebody that you're working on your substance use with in your sobriety. Again, court appearances, participate in all family interactions, visits with us, same thing, 11 o'clock. Phase 3 is strengthening family bonds. Mostly all the same, but we are adding in one family connection activity per week. We all think, yes, we have those all day long. Some of these families don't. Now they're back in the home, or maybe they were out of the home. But if they're back in the home, are we cooking dinner together? Are we playing a game on the couch? I can say my significant other, they never did any of that. They never ate as family. They never played games together. Great family, just wasn't like that. So why don't we do that? We need to make sure that they're a family. They're going to do visits, home visits, all of that, and working. Keeping yourself busy keeps you out of trouble. Phase 4, maintenance using community recovery network. They should be almost completed with treatment. By that time, they should have a community recovery network. That's good for them. Most of these individuals only had using friends. Though that's their whole entire identity, their life. Now they have to create a whole new one. That's very difficult. Hopefully they're getting into that and they're engaged in services, whether they are doing family interaction therapies, they're just doing mental health therapy, all of that. That will all be the same, and now you're working more. And the last phase of our program, phase 5, healthy family futures. They are still engaging with services, but now they're doing this all on their own. They're initiating all of their phone calls. They're initiating all of their contacts with people. They're done with treatment. This is really just looking. Are we good? Are we good to step away now? This would be our last phase, and the whole entire program should be 42 weeks or 9 to 10 months. So a lot faster than traditional treatment court. Incentives. family treatment court is highly incentivized. So the ratio should be around 3 to 1. Strong evidence support that incentive use improves the outcomes that we're desiring. Obviously, we can't use punitive sanctions, and so incentives are high, whether they're applause, a gift card, hey, a movie date, passes, that kind of thing. But if they're not doing so well, there are a few sanctions that we will use, but before we use any type of sanctions, we will always do therapeutic responses or adjustments first. So some of these things that are listed as sanctions, like more contact with me and CPS or increased court appearances, that really could be a therapeutic adjustment for them. They need more accountability. They're telling me, I have to go back to treatment. I need something else. I need somebody to call me every single day again. Okay. Also, there could be makeups in meetings if they're missing them, community service, curfew modifications. All of these sanctions, though, are a response to a specific behavior. We're not going to say you have to do community work service because you missed an appointment. That's not really a therapeutic response. All right, so there is, obviously you can graduate from our program, but you can also be discharged from our program. There's actually 3 discharges that happen in our treatment court. It will be an unsuccessful discharge if they are a safety risk, they're not compliant with treatment or the case plan. There really is just a lack of motivation to do much of anything. They have substantial violations of family treatment court rules, new criminal charges, parental termination of parental rights, and they're just not showing up. The other discharge would be an administrative discharge or a maximum benefit. The examples of those would be loss of jurisdiction or a medical maximum benefit. So despite ongoing engagement with these clients, FTC is just no longer an effective course for them. The last one is, because we are a voluntary, they can voluntarily withdraw at any time. They will just write me a letter so I can keep in the file. The judge will be notified, and that's all. That's all I really have, unless anybody has any particular questions. No? Great.
Mine up here. All right. We are running a few minutes ahead of schedule. And with that, I did just want to highlight one piece of the program that's really, I think, cool and unique to St. Croix County is that we have a designated substance use counselor and assessor already built into our children's services unit. That was a position that I think Bob had mentioned was funded through opioid settlement dollars. So in St. Croix County, if you have a child protection case and a parent is willing to engage in treatment, they can receive an assessment oftentimes within a week internally through a referral at zero cost to them. They don't need to have insurance. There are very few barriers to being able to access that service, and that's something that's really unique to St. Croix County, and I think, certainly gave us kind of a leg up in terms of competition for the grant, because oftentimes programs rely on external providers, and certainly we need and utilize our external providers for treatment and lots of things. But for that upfront assessment that's required for eligibility for treatment court, we're very fortunate to have that built right into our existing infrastructure. And one of the big pieces is, we're finding as we start this is it's really important to kind of strike while the iron's hot, so to speak. And so, you have maybe you have a search warrant executed and there's children removed from the home. That day is probably going to be the most motivated that the parents are to want to make a change in their life. So the sooner that we can, build on that motivation and say, okay, we'll connect you with Kim for a substance use assessment. She'll call you today to get something set up, and talking with them about the program, the more likely it is that they're going to engage and follow through with treatment. So I just wanted to highlight that as another kind of unique and cool component of the program. Does anyone since we're running about 10 minutes ahead of schedule before we go to break, does anyone have any questions about kind of the structure of the program, eligibility, requirements, maybe for either Kate or Judge Waterman?
There was a mention for disqualification to the program, a history of violence. Does that go back so far, and then somebody might have a history of domestic violence, but it might have been 10 years ago. Is there a cutoff that says, okay, well, 10 years ago is different than a year ago, you're still eligible because it was said 10 years ago or whatever? Or is it like, nope, if you've got domestic violence, you're out? What does that look like?
Judge, do you want to answer, or I can answer that as well?
Go ahead and answer.
Yeah. So, and I'm not sure exactly where that came from, if that was kind of a best practice standard, or Kim would know the answer to that. Or I'll let Kate answer that.
We don't have a rule on it. It's going to be really a case-by-case basis. So it's going to be very different than adult treatment court. But for this instance, yes, if it's 10 years ago, a domestic assault is very different than a homicide. Yep. And in violence, they might have not even had any criminal charges. But if you have a case that there was a case opened on these same people 10 years ago, but it's a lot of child abuse, or it's a lot of that kind of stuff, and violence is a huge factor, then we would individually look at those.
And it's not uncommon for families involved with child protection to have a history of violence, like you mentioned, Dina. That's oftentimes how we become involved with child protection. But it would be more related to, kind of an assessed level of safety risk as it relates to participation in the program, as well as like any egregious or aggravated circumstances, like Kate alluded to, that might prohibit the likelihood of reunification. Good question. Any other questions?
Probably about 20 total, but they would have to be staged over the 5 different phases. We can't have 20 people on phase 1, because that's where all of the work is done.
Good question. We do have families that have been referred at this point. We're anticipating that court will start here next week. Potentially, there's a kind of a backup date depending on scheduling, but either next week or February 5th, I think, is the alternative date. We haven't really figured out what our total capacity is yet, I don't think. It kind of will depend, but everyone's meeting often to kind of talk about those things, and we'll be communicating that if there's, any wait lists, that kind of thing. I don't anticipate that we'll have a wait list, but. Rebecca?
Just out of curiosity, and this may be putting the cart before the horse, but I had just wondered, with the families that you've identified as potential participants, do you have a sense of what the general reception of the program is at this point from the family's perspective? How are they viewing the possibility of being involved in this?
Yeah. That's a great question. And I know we have a lot of workers here. Emily, do you want to share? She has some families who she's talked to about the program.
I think it depends a little bit, is the honest answer. I was previously a probation agent for 14 years, so I'm very well connected with a whole lot of people with recovery needs. So I was able to pitch the idea of family treatment court to one of my previous clients who was on my caseload for probation. That allowed a more of an instant connection of, you know who I am, you know I did treatment court before for criminal treatment court, this is what the program's going to look like, this is how it's different, this is how we can approach it, and you can help me figure out how it's going to be best for CPS as well. She's on board, she signed all the documents, we're just waiting for the court to start. So I think it depends on being able to convince them that this is a good way to start, and a faster way to get their kids, and a way to build more support for them.
Yeah, one of the other pieces, there's a lot of, I think, questions about and concerns, frankly, about, it being a brand new program and what that's going to look like and entail and kind of what the nuances are. And, quite frankly, I get all these questions. I'm like, we're not really sure yet what all that is going to look like and what all of the nuances are. But the cool part about being someone who's willing to kind of take that risk is you can be a part of that process too, and developing and designing and pivoting as we need to. And I'm anticipating from, learning from Dunn County, who's here, and Barron County, that changes will need to be made as we roll out and learn more about how it's functioning for the participants. But we're ready to do that if needed. Any other questions before we take a quick break? All right, we'll come back at 1:30. Thank you.
Because of Family Recovery Court, I got my kids back.
Because of Family Recovery Court, I was able to find happiness and peace.
Because of Family Recovery Court, me and my daughter are now finally stable in a healthy, happy home. I've never had that before.
I've been a judge for 20 years. Prior to that, I was a district attorney for 20 years and handled CHIPS cases. Many of those cases where parents could not solve their addiction problem and lost their children. This is a comprehensive program giving services to parents that they may have never had. I've heard a number of these parents who had other services in CHIPS court saying, boy, I wish I'd had this before so I could get my child back or not lose my child. It's a evidence-based program where parents receive the services that really help.
I had started out drug usage at a very young age. My whole life has kind of been revolved around it. I dropped out of school when I was in 6th grade. I don't remember ever having a real life, and now my daughter is at risk of getting sent to a foster home, and that was kind of my make or break moment. I could either get myself together or I'd lose my daughter, and I finally realized how important my daughter was to me.
I got into Family Recovery Court because I had an overdose. I was addicted to opiates and methamphetamine, and the overdose kind of gave it away that we were having problems. So I had a CPS case, and they took my kids away, and so that was really the thing that I needed to kind of wake me up and know that this was a really huge problem and that I really needed help.
I was addicted to meth and had my kids taken away, and we had a CPS case, and I was offered FRC.
One difference between a typical CHIPS case and Family Recovery Court is the holistic approach that Family Recovery Court takes. So in a typical CHIPS case, you are going to get a lot of services, but Family Recovery Court really treats the whole family. So if you have a partner or are living with somebody, they're going to come along too, and we're going to support them because we want to keep that family unit together.
I know, finished my parenting today, and
let's give them a hand for finishing. We also need to have parents show that they can be a real parent, because many of these people have been addicted for a long period of time and really don't have parenting skills. So parents receive parent aid training, how to budget, how to keep an apartment, get a driver's license. We help them find jobs. We need these parents to be real parents, not just someone who has children in the home, but can really be the parent that these children deserve.
I mean, if I hadn't joined, I would have never been given the skills I needed to be a successful, sober parent. And with the accountability of needing to go to meetings each week, it gets you in the routine of living a healthy life that most people don't know how to live a healthy life, let alone someone newly sober.
Jordana, tell me, you've had a lot happen in the last 2 weeks.
Oh my goodness, have
Yes.
I ever? Okay, so
all these studies show that having this frequent contact with the judge, including all the services there, these parents have a much greater chance of successfully solving their addiction problem, becoming better parents, and keeping their child at home or getting their child back.
I went through dad's coaching, and it made me realize how much the small things really matter. So I started focusing on a lot more when it came to Arabella. And then when I started to focus on all that, everything started to fall into place. Then mine and Arabella's relationship became just crazy. It was just me and her started to flourish and just become so close.
I had set goals that I didn't even know that I wanted to achieve. And then once I actually started to achieve them, it made me more motivated. So once I achieved one, I was like, oh, I'm actually capable of doing that. So then I would achieve the next one and then the next one.
That shows a lot of growth on your part too, so let's give her a hand. You know, many parents think they can do this on their own. They've had short terms or periods of sobriety, but it's never lasted long term. Our Family Recovery Court really gives the parents the tools, the knowledge, and the support so that they can keep their children long term. I can always count on you for entertainment.
Gaining that trust for my team, I think everybody struggles with that right off the bat. Once I kind of let my guard down and realized, these people are here to help me, not to hurt me, I think that's really when things started to click and move in the right direction, is just being able to be hey, no, everybody here that is working on my team wants what's best for me.
You've made lots of progress here, so you ought to be proud of yourself. Because we've had a couple of cases together, haven't we?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wouldn't you say this is the best you've ever done?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I realized after the first couple months of being in that the team might seem like they were coming at me in specific, but there was a reason for it.
The team is here for you. The team isn't here for themselves. They're not here for anybody else but you and your child.
It was something that really helped me actually realize everything that they had me do built a toolbox and a foundation to my recovery that I need on a daily basis.
So I got happy because, this is the happiest I've ever been in my whole life. And that's one of my biggest ones. And a good dad.
The most impactful thing that I've seen is the joy in parents' faces when they get their children returned. Many of these people thought it was hopeless, and now they've been a success. And it's great to see a success, and also the benefit that these children get because they deserve a mom or dad who's clean and sober.
So for the first 8 months that I was in the program, because she got placed with her dad, she told me, "No, Mom, I'm not gonna come and live with you ever again. I don't trust you." Probably 9-10 months into the program, she came home one weekend and saw that I was getting my own place and the other girls were coming home, and she decided, she's like, I want to live with you full time. I want my mom back.
It's scary getting sober, and you can't do it alone. So to have the support of this program and other people in the program is only going to help you. Like I said before, I truly feel like I was meant to get sober at the moment that I did, and I believe that God had a plan for me and a purpose for getting sober at that moment when I did, when the program was starting. And I think that I survived the overdose for a reason.
Every single day I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, smile. Some days I might not want to come out of bed, okay, but I still wake up and I'm happy on my way to work, you know? And that's because I got sober. That's because of Family Recovery Court. Without this program, I would probably be in prison. And that's just me being completely honest, because I would have never stopped. You know, I wouldn't have realized that life can actually be this way.
All right. We are going to start with the Recovery Court speaker panel from Barron County. I would like to introduce our panelists, and they're going to share a little bit about what worked, what didn't work, and how this best practice model has impacted the families in their community and improved their community for the better, as well as the impact on their child protection practice. So I'll start over here. I'll start with Carla Broughton. Carla is the Youth and Families Program Manager for Barron County and oversees Child Protective Services. We have Honorable Judge Babler. He is the presiding judge of Barron County. Amanda Twitchell is a former FRC program participant and currently works as a recovery coach with Arbor Place. And then we have Laura Dobereiner, who's the lead CPS social worker for Barron County. And I have questions that I'll be asking them, and they'll pass around the mic to whoever can best answer the question. And then at the end, we'll open up questions for everyone else. All right, are you ready? Okay. The first question is, how is Family Recovery Court different than traditional CHIPS cases?
So from my perspective, I've had both. So I had a CHIPS case before I got into Family Recovery Court. And so my initial CHIPS case, that only lasted maybe 6 months. And for me, it was basically drug testing 2 days a week and seeing my social worker once a month. Whereas with FRC, it's long-term support. So I had this group of people, this team of people helping me navigate the ebbs and flows of my life for 12 to 18 months. So I had a ton of big things happen where it was relationships, new jobs, going to school, getting my kids back, like a whole lot of change. And having that team of people around me was phenomenal. I couldn't have done it without them. Another big thing is the relationship with the judge. My relationship with my judge, I think it was a really good balance of accountability and support. So I would go in one week, tell him something like, I'm going to take this test for my HSED. And the following week, I didn't have to bring that up. He remembered that. Or, asking me, using my kids' specific names, like, hey, how's Aaliyah, Abella, and Alice doing? And that really made me feel really connected to him. And then I like that you mentioned that you guys are doing goals, because that was a huge piece for me too. I ended up going back to school, and I wouldn't have done that without the goals. It wasn't even on my radar. It was just this piece where we filled out like a 1-year goal, but we had multiples of them. And we broke those down into smaller goals that were super achievable, like go to Northwood Tech, sign up, take the pre-test, all of these things. And within a short amount of time, I had hit 3/4 of those small goals. And before you knew it, like, I achieved the goal. And it was, like I said in the video, like, it's stuff that you don't think that you're capable of until you're kind of forced to do it. And then the last thing is the community of the other participants. So having people around you that are going through the same exact thing is super helpful.
I just want to make a couple of comments about the video. When it's promotional, that's what's showing to people we want to join Family Recovery Court. It may have brought some tears to your eyes every time I see it. I kind of well up, and I know these people. I know the story. But aren't most of you tired of coming to court and nothing really happened? Nothing really changed? I've been a judge for 20 years. One of the reasons I stay on is because of this. I've had people who had 3 CHIPS cases before. I have a mom right now who's had all of her children terminated, 4 other children terminated. She's been in other CHIPS cases, and she's doing just a wonderful job. Okay, but we failed and we failed and we failed. Okay, I can't tell you how important Family Recovery Court is because it is so different. And everyone who's been in CHIPS, Amanda, will tell you that it's not just another CHIPS case. And we'll talk a little bit more about how we get people in. But it is totally, I shouldn't say totally different, but it's different in how this works. We have a team that supports them. They get to see the judge regularly. It's evidence-based practices. We used to think that we did things well. We didn't. All right. That's one of the things you have to think about is, that, life is full of changes. I was DA for 20 years and then judge. 40 years ago, we used to remove lots of children. That's just not it, and we'll talk about that. But they get to see the judge regularly. It used to be that they'd see me every 6 months because that's the permanency plan review. Guess what? They do something the week before because they know they're coming before the judge. Well, you can't get clean and sober when you go to treatment once every 6 months or you go to an appointment once every 6 months. And so it's working with that team in the off weeks because we meet every other week. That's another evidence-based practice. It's not how we started out, but that's what we got to is you have to have frequent, either every week or every other week. And so that has been a huge difference, I think, for many of the people that we have in our recovery court. And the other is incentives. We use Babler bucks. We hand out. We should have brought some, handed them out. They get my pictures on there, and they get to exchange. Right. And if they're doing really well, let's say that they completed their AODA treatment, they get 20 Babler bucks, and then they can buy certain things. And it may be, gas cards. A lot of people don't have money for gas. And so actually, we used to just give out the cards, but then we couldn't differentiate because, one person did a little bit and one did a lot, but each gets the same gas card. That didn't quite seem right. But they get to use Babler bucks and has been hugely successful in doing that. It used to be because we had 2 judges doing Babler and Bitney, and there would be Bitney bucks and Babler bucks, but Babler bucks were better.
And Judge Bitney wanted us to make his higher.
Yeah, so
$10.
yeah, so it's a little bit of a competition.
Yeah, the only other incentive I wanted, so to all of that, the difference is that anybody who's been a child protection worker or works alongside them knows we do a lot. An ongoing and initial assessment, they do the best they can. They get people connected to services. We're doing outpatient, we're doing inpatient. It is just a totally different program. And what we were always missing, we knew, was treatment. And that's what this is. This brings treatment alongside child welfare and child protection work. The other incentive that I wanted to mention is upon reunification, or I don't know if it's a certain milestone, we have our parent educator who is now retired also takes pictures. And so she takes family photos for people, professional family photos, which is really a nice kind of add-on for people who maybe are recently reunified or they just haven't had it's an expense, it's a time, it's all the things. And so that's another little incentive that they can get some, they get the whole disc then and they can print them off, and something to think about.
Already decided we're going to steal that idea. So,
Well, I've already going to steal some of yours. So. The next question.
what worked well in early implementation, and what challenges did you encounter that you didn't anticipate?
The one thing I wanted to point out, so we also received the OJJDP grant 2019. We enrolled our first families August of 2020 in the middle of COVID. So I hate to really even think about what we do different because it's just like, it's a space and time none of us can go to. But I do, earlier when you guys were talking about like the families and what family interests do we have, when we first started, we wanted to, fill the bench. And so we were going through our ongoing cases saying, these are the families that we should, this is it. If they don't, they might die. They will never get their kids back. These are the ones. We need to offer this to them. And so we enrolled families that likely weren't going to be successful. We wanted them to be successful, but for their own reasons. I think over time, one of our takeaways is that parents who have a strong attachment and bond to their children will do phenomenal in this program. And they will do well because if they can even be in this program and their children were never removed, which I know is a big shift with the child welfare system, but if we're doing protective plans in the point of IA, and by the time we're getting to plea, kids are back home on in-home safety plans, and we're off to the races in treatment court, it's just phenomenal how we, I think, little by little have noticed that's the difference.
Laura, did you want to say?
I'd say initially what worked really well was that we had strong support across all agencies. We had our judges, our attorneys, our treatment team was on board. We had child protection at the table. We had already done some early efforts at a road to reunification court. So we had tried some of these things and we're collaborating. So I just think having the right people at the table makes a huge difference. Additionally, we saw the people who were attending regularly saw the positive impacts of this program instantaneously. We were seeing people get sober, we were seeing them participate, they were vocalizing how things were going. So the people in the room had the feel goods right away. Through all of that, we also got the feedback of adding recovery coaches, peer support. So that's how we added recovery coaches to our team, which has just been a phenomenal add, having that layer. Some challenges that we saw, which I'd say, looking back, it's silly. Some of the stuff was silly, but you have the structure, your governance structure that she showed at the beginning, your little triangle. We didn't use that very well at the beginning. So we'd sit in court and we'd talk about, oh my gosh, so-and-so has this boyfriend and we don't really like this boyfriend. This makes me really nervous that they've got this boyfriend and this boyfriend isn't coming to court. And oh my gosh. So we talked about, and boyfriend's the example, but I'm this has same topics over and over. And then once we were stop talking about this, send it up to steering to get some technical assistance to manage this and is this something we need to worry about or talk about? Then we developed some structure around that. This is what we're going to offer the boyfriends and girlfriends, the significant others of the participants. We're going to include them. You eliminate some of the stuff that gets you stuck in the mud when you use that governance structure. So I just say it seems silly and unimportant now, but that's really important in total. Yes, and I think one of our initial challenges was also our coordinator, because we were like COVID new. We were like the coordinator and social worker are going to do everything together. It's like not really. So we had to really work on like dividing and pulling those two roles apart later on. But now I think we have those two structures developed really well. So.
Couple of perspectives from the bench. First of all, the consistency that we had really worked well about our milestones and progress through the program. Also flexibility, learning that after a few months we realized what we thought would work didn't. And so I think everyone was willing to be flexible because what looked like was going to work at first just didn't work. So we made some changes. One of those was allowing significant others to be in the program. First we said, no way, they can't be in it. It's not their children. We thought they're going to just bring people down. I have two in my court, and I thought this is going to be a total failure. They're rock stars. The significant other really helped rather than hindered. So you're going to have a lot of initial thoughts based upon what you've learned in life, and you go, I guess I was wrong, right? This really did work. So you got to be open about changing your mind. Here's some of the challenges. We first started out with we have 3 judges. We all were doing family recovery court. Did not work, okay, because we just weren't meeting frequently enough. Then we went to 2, and actually that worked well. Then one of my colleagues retired, and they said, well, I do it all. And I go, I don't think so. But I did. I said, I'll try it for a year if it's too much. But I spent a whole afternoon every 2 weeks. We do an hour and a half of our team staffing, and then an hour and a half of court. Right now, I get about 5 minutes per participant. Well, maybe less than that because I have 17 in it. I was saying to Judge Waterman, they're talking about 20. I have 15, and because you get 5 minutes. All right, that's 5 minutes per person. And actually, that is evidence-based practice. It's supposed to be 4 to 7 minutes, so 5 is okay, all right? But it's exhausting. And even when they're doing well, I am spent after an hour, after doing a whole afternoon of family recovery, because there's a lot of emotion there too, whether it's good or bad. So I just, remember, you're involved with these people emotionally too. Don't forget that as being, the professionals. The participants are also, but it takes a lot out on the professionals. And so you just have to do that. So it worked really well. I mean, I think maybe in my 3rd year of the only judge doing it.
I forgot to ask him after 1 year.
Yeah, after I didn't quit doing it. So there was some early resistance there where for another challenge about people being unwell early in the milestones, you have to there's going to be failures right off, but they can still make it through. All right, so, you just have to say, yes, we know you're going to fail. That's just part of the program, so you have to be open to that. And what we've really changed is when you first started out, they're already in CHIPS cases, and they're maybe a long ways in. We don't do that anymore. Most of our participants now start before their first plea hearing. All right, we get them in early. They're said, here, if you want to save your lives, this is the way to do it. We'll get you in early. So they usually shadow me. And actually, most of my participants are from the other branches. It just turned out to be that way. Of my 17, I think I have 3 of the 17 or 4. The rest are from the other 2 branches, so I don't know their CHIPS cases. There's a downside because I don't know their underlying case, but I still can be the Family Recovery Court judge. But we want them in early because you have much better chance of success if you get them early. And so that was a huge change for us because we were getting people on the back end, and that didn't work very well.
I would just like to add to that, one of the reasons we were able to do this, and this is a system change, is that parent attorneys are appointed at the point of TPC. So when we have parents that are represented from the point of TPC or petition, they feel supported. Our attorneys are on board with Family Recovery Court. They're talking to their clients about you should do Family Recovery Court. So that's when the judge says that we're doing it early, is because we're not, people feel that they're coming along with that because they have representation the whole way.
Let me just say, so, from the court budget, we appoint attorneys for every CHIPS parent. From the minute the TPC is, when we get a call that there's a TPC, our JAs are on the phone and we get lawyers for them. Most of them appear by Zoom, but they've spoken to the parents, and there's huge buy-in from the parents because now they don't feel like they are being attacked. They feel they have an ally with them, and these attorneys know their best bet for these parents is if they join Family Recovery Court. So it's a whole system change. It's not just, there's lots of players in this that you need to buy into to the program.
I did just want to add one thing about the kind of earlier engagement with participants. We have developed, made it more structured, developed this orientation milestone where people are starting to do things so they feel like they're making progress right away in the program. In addition, part of that orientation milestone is shadowing the court. And they typically go to court to shadow with their initial assessment social worker. And I'd say that has been a really excellent way to engage folks early on. It gives the initial assessment social workers a front row seat about how things are going, what they're talking to people about when they're kind of selling this program or trying to convince people to come with me to this thing. We had previously said, yeah, just go up there and sit in court, and it's the third door on the left. So as you can imagine, not many people wanted to come. It's like coming to church and having no one to sit by. So going with your worker that you've already made that kind of initial connection with made a huge difference. So if there's space in your program for that, I'd highly recommend.
Many Family Recovery Court cases are able to remain in-home in Barron County. And how does your program support safety while keeping families together more effectively?
The first thing I'm going to tell you is just a little bit of background. In 2018, our county had 122 children out of home. So the three judges, Carla and her boss, another one of the managers, we met together and said, we're a failure here in Barron County. It is not working. So they said, we're going to change the way we do things. We didn't know what we're going to change, but we have to change. We can't have this many children out of home. We were doing, 20 TPRs in a year. And if any of you think about child trauma, being TPR'd as a child is a trauma. I've had failed, they can't be adopted. Whenever you get this from, they say everyone can be adopted, untrue. And I had one child, I tell this story because it's a meth case, my worst meth case. 5 children, mom and dad were out using meth. They said they were out doing the laundry. They weren't. The family dog mauled one of the children in the face. It's a horrible story. Mom and dad just couldn't get off meth, but we didn't have Family Recovery Court then. Did the TPR because they did nothing. They're still into meth. First time I ever approved the split of the 5 children. Okay, so it was 2, 2, and 1. The 1 was the oldest who was parentified. She then, there's no relatives. She was in a pre-adoptive home. I think she was in 4 or 5 foster homes. A nice young couple by Eau Claire. She tried contacting her biological parents because she knew who they were. She was old enough. Well, she did. She contacted them on Facebook with iPad at the adoptive home. They punished her. They took away the iPad. They lived out in the country. She wasn't allowed to do anything. They finally said, we're not going to adopt her. So she's now 14 or 15, went from this place to that place. Lutheran Social Services was managing. It's another story. It's horrendous. Carla knows because we had multiple meetings with the state about how bad things Lutheran Social Services was doing regarding adoption. And she finally got to some extended family member in Arkansas. But what a horrendous job. Did we do a better job by taking her out of this home? You know, they should have been in family recovery court. You see? So look at that. This wasn't good for this child. She lived a horrendous life even though she wasn't with dangerous parents. So you have to think about what's the impact on children. So we decided we're not going to take children out if we can keep them safe. Right now, of my 17 parents in family recovery court, I think only 2 have their children out of home. Huge. When we started out, almost all of our families, almost all the children were out. And that's a different incentive for the parent. Okay? Almost all my parents have their children in home. And remember, this is a voluntary court. So most of my work is cajoling, true for the social workers, you know. Here's what's best for you, here's what's best for your family. Not that if you don't do this, you don't get your children back. And it's a very different dynamic. Our goal is to make sure that they are safe. And so all this, I'll let Carl and them think about that. But I just wanted to give you a little background. I'm a huge believer in is that we do not remove children from home unless absolutely necessary. That is the position of all 3 judges. There are times when I refuse to remove children from home. You would think that would be different. But I've been through this enough. I'm now on 3rd or 4th generation because I've been in the same county. I was DA, I did the CHIPS cases. I see children that when I was DA, I took out of their home, all right? And now their parents or grandparents of the children they're now in here. So it is generational. And we're trying to break the cycle. That's what Family Recovery Court does.
Yes, the only thing I would add is to all of that, families get better. You think of like anything you struggle with, you're going to get better when you have your family around you. And so it is just a shift in practice. We do a lot of protective planning on the front end, and we do a lot of in-home safety services, monitors where people can, we can find out whether or not they're using alcohol, have them blow on this machine 4, 5, 6, 7 random times a day, increased drug testing. I always tease, I'm like, there are no safer children in Barron County than those in family recovery court. Because there is so much like interaction and contact and checking in and, oh, I had to go here today. And so there's just so, you know, I think it's a hard shift. It's a shift that's happening across the state of Wisconsin of serving families together. That we do know that there have been a lot of practice that we thought was best practice that wasn't in the past. But you do have to be really, again, to the system, very supportive of each other, trusting of each other, that you got, you know, the judge trusts that the department's got the safety ball, the department trusts that treatment's got the treatment ball, that the coordinator's got their ball, and you have to trust that all of those systems are working together.
Amanda, would you like to say a little bit?
You guys kind of covered everything, but I just wanted to touch on just the normalcy for the children. While it's obviously not ideal for these children to be living, mine included, to be living in this household where there's substance use, that is what's normal to them, and they're going to be a lot less traumatized if you can keep them in home and make that place safe than removing them and putting them into foster care.
I just want to make one other comment about all of this. It is our natural response to say the child is always safer someplace else. That's true, you know, and I often get this in family court where people are divorced and one parent, they're so afraid that their child is not safe because they can't see the child. That's always true. Or if you're, when you have teenage kids and they go out, you know, for the night, you're always saying, your mind can go, what, you know, they could have a car accident, they're drinking, they drown because they're out in the whatever. That's all true. You know, you can't say these are not risks. But the danger, what's the risk of removing the child? You immediately have trauma, okay? So you're going to create that right away. So you have to balance that. What's the physical safety risk? What's the trauma risk of doing that? And it's a hard mind shift because you're trying to say, I always want to be safe. Well, if you always want to be safe, then they ought to be right in front of you in the courtroom because that's the only way they're safe all the time. We take those risks, in all of our lives with our children. And you just have to think about which risk is more than the other.
Okay. We have our county administrator in the room. We have county board members, and so we'd be remiss not to talk about the cost of all this. So how does Family Recovery Court impact CPS and county costs compared to traditional CHIPS cases?
First of all, with our costs, because we want to make it a sustainable model. Carla and I have spent time, and then her former boss who just retired, our whole goal is this grant isn't going to last forever. We want to make it sustainable. And we've really figured out that all of the money that we're spending, we have in our budget except for the coordinator. And I'm not saying that's insignificant because it's probably we're figuring $100,000. But looking back, we met together by Zoom talking about this and looking back at this. Think of all the money you've wasted in CHIPS cases, all right? That you went through a year, maybe 2 years of CHIPS. You spent all this money, and guess what? You didn't solve anything. So what you've done is you've wasted taxpayer money. And it just dawned on me in the last week, when we were talking about this, it is money that was misspent. If you're not going to solve the problem, why did we spend any money on that family? All right? What we can do here with a family recovery court is we can change a whole family, we can change generations. And, we during the statistics too, what does this do in the future? But we have to have another generation. It may take us 10 or 15 years or 20 years to figure out what the real savings are. But we know for sure we've wasted that money. As Amanda said, she had a previous CHIPS case. Did that work? No. She had short-term sobriety. That's what she got.
Years, yeah.
Yeah, but that's short-term. We're looking for recovery, which is different than sobriety. That people, that's the problem we get is people say, well, I haven't had any alcohol or drugs in the last year, so I'm cured. Any of you believe that here? But I get plenty of parents who believe that this is the best I've ever been. But look at the success if you keep that whole, generation. So if the family has 3 kids and then they have more children, because I've been here long enough, I know the names. I could give Carla a couple names because she's been around a long time. And we just say, well, yeah, they're going to be in CHIPS court. All right? My wife was a kindergarten teacher. She could tell you at age 5 which ones are going to end up in court. Because you know which families they came from. You can see what's going on with the parenting. So what we're doing is we're making generational changes here. And so long term, we save lots of money. Short term, it might cost us a little more, but I think really long term, we're gonna save that. Carla?
I think Amanda didn't mention that this May, she's graduating from UW Eau Claire with a degree in social work. And she's going to be interning with us, and then, if we have a spot or any other county that's looking for a social worker. So you just think about that. Amanda's a human, a person that we worked with. And then it's somebody that now is entering the field of child welfare, somebody with lived experience, somebody that we can lean into when we're saying, we don't know why they're not doing, and then Amanda can say, because they're sleeping all the time, I was tired, I wasn't getting out of bed, my mind was fog. And so I did not sharpen my pencil with numbers and such, but I can tell you the other cost, the human cost, is staff retention. I'm guessing Judge Babler's job feels a lot nicer on Tuesday afternoons. It is taxing and draining, but when social workers feel like it's not just their job to help people follow a court order, that there's an entire team that will come together and staff. It's not my problem. It's not Amanda's problem. It's going to be everybody's problem that we're going to talk about. And so I just think that that's the part that I can't give you a number on, but it's everybody goes into these jobs because they want to help people and they want to see success. And when you start seeing it, Bryce saying to the judge that it's the first time ever in his life he had a Christmas tree. Growing up, his family never, ever had a Christmas tree, and that he is with his daughter and they're celebrating Christmas. And it's like those little things, right, that you can't put money on.
I'm just going to say a couple things about that human cost, because it's for the professionals, because we do get people that leave because there's no job satisfaction. And there is not a lot for judges either. So every 2 weeks, if my family recovery court is working well, I get job satisfaction. This Christmas, one parent had his 2 children write or do Christmas cards for me. I never gotten a Christmas card before as judge, and I've been a judge for a long time. Another parent in family recovery court, she and her daughter made little Christmas ornaments for me. And you don't get much of that being a judge. But, every time you see those failures, you say, why should I do this work anymore? It's nice to have some positives in your job, or to see families that you thought would never, ever make it, or see children who are happy to be with their parents. That's pretty important.
Why is the coordinator role essential to the success of family recovery court?
So I'd say when I look at what our coordinator does, it's the chaos coordinator, organizing everything. Does that sound about right? Yeah. So this person is taking in all of this information from the reports from treatment, hearing from the social worker, reviewing the results of the drug testing, talking to the person about their individual goals, and then bringing that to the team, making sure that there's this like structure that we're having this conversation about what's important, not I saw them at the grocery store and they didn't look very good. So like really elevating what's important and not the like kind of small townness, see you at the store, what's happening at recess, all these kinds of things. The other thing that I'd say is like super important for our coordinator, which it may be a little different here, but this person is the coordinating of drug testing, making sure that we're like moving through this, making it random, making sure that people are coming in, really developing those relationships with the participants through all of the things they have to do. The use of motivational interviewing has been, I'd say, programmatically changing. We got some very pointed education about that. And Heidi has been really able to talk to people who are in this like stage of ambivalence about what am I going to do here? I've been coming to this program and I have not testing sober yet, and I can't. These are the barriers, and using the tool of motivational interviewing to move people into treatment. I can say 3 cases recently that it has been remarkable, and they were on the fence about going to inpatient, and once they did, they were different people. So high use of those skills and really working with people through those stages of ambivalence. The child protection worker just does not have the time to be spending that amount of time with the person, talking through that kind of ebb and flow of those early stages of recovery. I think that's it.
And then for me, she was my first in line. She was the person that I contacted right off the jump. I think as people with CHIPS cases, our CPS workers are terrifying. You're the last people we want to contact about anything that we're struggling with, unfortunately. So yeah, she was my first point in contact, and somebody that I would kind of like buff things out with. Like I'd be like, hey, I haven't told my social worker yet, but this is kind of what I'm thinking. And like, she would either be like, yeah, no, that's fine. Or she'd be like, oh, we better talk to the social worker. And, but still I was telling somebody, she kind of let me know how my social worker was going to feel about it without me talking to my social worker, which was helpful.
And not a secret keeper, but somebody that can be that, like, I am super afraid and this is what's happened, and like we got to talk about it, but I'm a little worried about if I talk to her right away what's going to happen, and what do you kind of, so like not a secret keeper, but really that first point of contact to make sure that the message is getting to the team. So
one thing I just want to add in, Laura was talking about motivational interviewing through the Family Treatment Court grant. We've been able to train 50 of our staff across child protection and behavioral health and motivational interviewing. We finished up that training series here at the end of the month. So that's something we're excited about that we've been able to do. That's a best practice. That's something that's been proven to kind of move people closer to through the stages of change. And so we were excited to be able to do that through the grant. Okay, next question. How does Family Recovery Court differ from Adult Treatment Court? I know many of us in the room all are familiar with drug court for adults, but how does it differ from that in goals, structure, complexity?
I've presided over our adult recovery court in the past, and now have the Family Recovery Court. You know, when you're doing adult recovery court, you have jail as a sanction. In fact, in Barron County, they're on felonies, and their option usually is prison, so they have some motivation there. And when we first started out with Family Recovery Court, because almost all of our participants, their children were out of home, there's a lot of motivation then to do this. Now with almost all of our children in home, we have to work a lot harder. Not only me as judge, but also the social worker or the coordinator, pointing out, using motivational interviewing, trying to get to that point, showing why this is really important for you and your lives. Most recently, I've been begging people to join Family Recovery Court because in my CHIPS cases, just starting out, because they really need it. I'm batting about 50-50 on that. I recently had one where, and because we have children come to court also, which I think is really important, teenagers, and dad was going to get the children, but children didn't really like to be with dad. It was a 50-50 custody, but dad has some mental health issues. Mom was driving with the children drunk in the car, and this is her second or third CHIPS, I can't remember. And we have one judge, one family, one judge. So I've always had the case, so they know me. And I begged her, I said, you really need to do Family Recovery Court, and she didn't think so. So her teenage daughter was in the row right behind her, and she just stood up and she goes, if she did this program, could we go home? And I said, yes, you could. Guess who convinced her to join Family Recovery Court? Her teenage daughter. Which is another I'm a big believer in children being in court too. This is a big one. Not treatment court. This was right in the CHIPS. Yeah, they don't come to the treatment court. And Mom is doing fabulously now. She got the children back home because Dad was doing worse. And that has been actually one of the things that we've seen in Family Recovery Court, that they're not necessarily removed from both their parents. It's just that this parent doesn't have placement. But in the last 6 months, I had two other, and they're both fathers that got children back because they're doing really well. Here's the other one that you may not have thought of, but most of them also have a criminal case pending. And our DA is willing to give them a better deal if they do Family Recovery Court. So that's why DA needs to be involved. They need to know about this. But isn't that interesting that they, in the back, and that's part of our sheet showing they have a criminal case pending. When is your plea hearing? Sometimes I'm their judge. In our county, our policy is you can plead on any Friday. We just have open pleas. And so they might choose me, even though it's not my criminal case. We don't care. We're here to get rid of cases. But sometimes it's a case assigned to me, so I have both their criminal case and their CHIPS case. Sometimes I have their family court case too. But that's another incentive, so that's part of a usefulness there. I don't have control over that, but it's their internal motivation. It's true for their significant others usually, that they have a criminal case pending. Much of what I do is, ask him, why is this better? Why are you better now? You're trying to say, and we have to do convincing. Should you go to inpatient treatment? Because that's a really difficult one. Getting people to inpatient, we've had real success. Most of you probably know that inpatient is not the solution for everyone because they have to live in the community. But some people are just so bad they need the inpatient to get the jump start, and then we can do the rest of it in the community. But cajoling, talking about the benefits, getting family members involved, and we also serve the family unit, not just the individual. So we want to make sure that if there's still an intact couple, that other person's involved, and they may not have a drug and alcohol problem. We also have those with significant others or the spouse. They both have drug and alcohol, then they both need to be into the program. We've had them where they start out, one parent does well, the other doesn't. Guess who gets to keep the child? The one that does well. So there's some of those other incentives there that it's not quartered, it's just, it naturally happens by what goes on.
We're really working on still building our services in the community for children who our parents are in family recovery court. I'd say that's another component of how it differs than adult recovery court. Celebrating Families is a evidence-based program, a 16-hour week, year curriculum for parents and their children, similar to like a Strengthening Families, if anyone's familiar with that. Parents have a session, kids have sessions, they have sessions together. We've been able to run one in our community with our North Lakes providers, and we're continuing to work with external partners. Again, that would be no cost to the county because we're asking for partnership from different providers to be able to continue to put this on in our community. Some takeaways we got from the families that went through: parents didn't think children knew that they were using. Kids are like, I was well aware that you were using. Kids are talking about, now mom and dad are sober and I don't really like these rules and they want me to do my homework. And so adjusting to what home life looks like now that parents are in recovery. Different, just, no phones at the dining room table, and kids holding parents accountable to that when they're having their meals together during Celebrating Families. So I think when we say family, it's like we continue, like, how does the whole family heal? How do the sisters and the brothers who are like, I am so sick and tired of picking up the pieces when this falls apart, how do we help them get better? How do we have grandmas coming saying it's the first time we've had Christmas with a sober Christmas in years. Haven't been able to have my son or my daughter at Christmas sober. So it's definitely different in the fact that it's family. It's different than child protection because there's treatment, and it's different than any other case because we're incorporating the whole family getting better.
I don't have much to add on this particular topic, but interestingly, we did have, when we were early implementation, we had a couple participants who had participated in our adult recovery court, or it's like they're all adults, but you know what I mean, and then had not done well, and then enrolled in our family recovery court program post unsuccessful completion of their adult criminal case, and they spoke about just like the remarkable difference of how serving the family unit helped their success. They were in, seeing the judge and everything. When they're having their adult case, they're going home and their partner's using. So very difficult to be successful when you're not addressing everything that's going on in the home environment. And that court just didn't have the capacity to examine all those different factors.
And I just want to point out, I forgot to mention this earlier, but Barron County opted to call their program Family Recovery Court. We called ours Family Treatment Court. They're the one and the same, but each program kind of has variations of their name. What impact has Family Recovery Court had on your community since implementation?
This is where I'd like to just talk about the importance of like your assessments over time and like whatever you're doing at the beginning, tracking those and bringing those forth to your annual meetings or however you're reviewing that data will be important just to see how you're doing over time. For us, one of the assessment tools that we use is the Bridge. The Bridge assesses participant progress across 6 dimensions: family stability, well-being, financial management, education and training, employment, and career management, and mobility, like their ability to get around. I think there was housing or something on there too. So we do this when the participants first begin in orientation, and then we're doing this every time they're leveling up in their milestones. So what I can say as far as the Recovery Court has had a huge impact on obviously the individual participants. Our participants are making progress in all of these domains over time. We've had some data crunched by the UW Falls showing that we've had these marked success over time for our participants. Even those that do not graduate our program are leaving us better than they started. So that is just like obviously some feel good. Even if you don't complete the program, you're better off than you were when you started. The participants are doing things in the community that they were not doing before. They're gainfully employed, they're paying their taxes, they're participating in their kids' education, they are managing restaurants that we frequent, they are active participants in their community. They are now recovery coaches. They are giving back and helping the rest of the recovery community. So as far as how it impacts your community, I'd say obviously we can have these individual things, but they are fully engaged members of society, and we are obviously so proud.
I just point out that most of these people would end up in jail or prison, so we'd be spending money on them. And now they're in the community working and paying taxes and caring for their own children. And, you know, it's hard to do those numbers, what you prevent. But we know those. If you remember, Bryce was on there. He had a felony case pending. He was likely to go to prison. He's the one that said he never really had a family, the one that never had a Christmas tree until he was in Family Recovery Court. And aside is the first day he was in my Family Recovery Court, he walked out. It's the only person that's ever walked out on me, just on the first day. But he's truly one of our success cases. But he would have been in prison, so then we spend, let's say, $50,000 of state money, whereas we spent our money, and now he's successful in the community and a really great dad.
I will share we did buy a Christmas tree after talking with Barron County for one of the participant incentives. Last question. What is one lesson or piece of advice you would offer St. Croix County as we launch our program?
Mine is be flexible and ready for change, and if most of you know that, I'm pretty structured. And so that can be hard, right, Carla? The workers know that, but you have to, because, you know, you're in a new realm. This is going to be very different, so just be open to other people's ideas.
Mine would be to be willing to partner and collaborate, and to be willing to lean into the expertise at the table, to be okay with that. I'm child protection, so I'm going to speak about child safety. But really, I need to look to my treatment providers. I need to look to people in recovery as to what's going to work best for this family. We need to look to the families about what's going to work best for them. Asking participants, how can we shift this program to meet your needs? So I would just say really being humble to that it's going to take everybody, and everyone's going to have to adjust to some old ways of how we used to do business.
And mine is to, I don't know if you have peer support on your team, but pour into your peer support. I think Barron County did such a good job of like building, we've had multiple recovery coaches, but building our confidence, giving us a seat at the table, asking our, like what we thought about, you know, a situation and maybe how I felt when I was in that situation. And it, I believe, improved outcomes for families.
And my advice is keep communicating. There will be points in time that you are incredibly frustrated with your clients, with each other, that you think somebody else should be doing something and they're not. And the only thing you can say is everyone is at the table, has a really good heart and wants the best outcomes for your clients. Keep communicating. Use your governance structure to sort out the stuff that is problematic, that's like bogging you down during court, and collect your data and reflect on what needs to be changes thoughtfully. Don't make big swings. That's all we got.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes the panel. We'll have about a 15-minute question and answer session for any questions, and then we'll close it up with closing remarks before 3 o'clock here. So open it up to any questions. Yes.
I'm wondering, 72 counties in Wisconsin, how many counties are doing this? How many are not? And what would be the rationale for not doing this evidence-based practice?
I'll make a couple remarks. When we first started out, there were only a few counties, a handful. I don't know what it is now. Mostly because it's the inertia of doing change. We just do things the same way we've always done that. It's not really money, because anyone could have applied for these grants a long time ago, but nobody wanted to change. Our change was really because we were failing, and we knew we had to make a change. We just didn't know what it was. I tell our participants when they come in, I said, this is the best program in the state of Wisconsin. I believe it. And I'm not trying to downplay any other counties, but we really work hard at this. We want to keep families together. We want children to go back to families. That's one of my selling points when I encourage people to be in there. Or sometimes, because I have one right now who wants to leave. It's one of my worst cases. He had mental health problems. He tried committing suicide in front of the whole family with the children, with a gun. It's just horrendous. He got his first job in 5 years. It's the first time he's been sober in probably 20 or 30 years. And he wants to leave. You know why? Because it's the best he's ever been. Okay? But we want full-time, we're trying to say, don't you want this forever, though? Not just for another couple of months. And that's part of what we have to do in doing this. But yes, it does cost some money. There's only so many federal funds. That's why, maybe there's a dozen counties in the state that may have the program. When we did, there was only, 10. Is it 10? It's 10 now? Okay. But you can see with 71 counties, when I say, and I really do believe we have the best program, we have done phenomenal things for people. And, if someone offered you a free program to save your life, wouldn't you take it? Okay? But if you're addicted, you don't necessarily take it. All I'm trying to point out is we're offering it to you, just take it. It doesn't cost you anything. Yeah.
Heather?
How many children do you have in that open placement now?
About 35 to 40. Usually runs around 30.
Yeah, isn't that great from 120? Just think of the trauma. And almost all of those are with family members.
Yes.
We try not, foster parents are great, but they're not family.
I'd say 60%.
Yeah, 60%. So we're really proud of that. I mean, we've made a huge change in 8 years. Intentionally made the change in 8 years. Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so you mentioned family. Oftentimes we're placing, right, a family in regular CHIPS court. You want the kids to come into court facing, the placement providers will come into court. How often do you get them involved at all with the treatment piece? Because so many times when I was a social worker 20 years ago, and doing the work, the family isn't as supportive because what they've seen for many years, there's not been change. And how do we help get them on board with that as well, so that way they can be a support and for the entire family with the kids in the home and most likely their relative, their daughter or son-in-law, right?
I'll let the social workers tell about the mechanics, but what we often find, from my perspective, is children want to go see their parents when they know they're clean and sober. They're better than drug testing, because we've had kids who say, I don't want to go back home, and we know that parents they're not staying clean and sober, although they're testing okay, because, they can play, they know how this works. If I use today, but I think I'm going to be tested 3 days, this is what I can do. We know how that is, and that's why we do random. But I've had several families that the children are the litmus test of how well parents are doing. That's just from my perspective, not the social work and how that.
I'd say in this program, how we've tried to make some intentional efforts to include people, those kind of family members, the natural supports. We've had family members Zoom in to come to their court appearance. I'd say Travis's mom, one of our previous participants, his mom, I think she could have ran the courtroom. She did such a great job. We all had the good feels after Grandma did some talking and saying how things were going. We have other times that they'll come in just for their person's court hearing to see how things are going, having them come to graduation, having them come to milestone advancements. So I think there's ways that you can include them. For really damaged relationships, we've provided family therapy. I think there's just so much to be said about building up the network for people because that's who they're going to when they leave us. So if those relationships are repaired, hopefully they can work together through some of these things, including them in their treatment planning with their relapse prevention planning. Like these are the things that you should really hold me accountable for because these are things that are going to cause me to slip. So it really, that inclusion across multiple domains with the visits, with the treatment, therapy, coming to court, and then they see their person's progress over the time they're in the program. Yes, we've also had some activities where the families and the natural supports can come together to find support through each other. So we'll have like Friendsgiving, we have Christmas together, so they'll have times they can come together and find support. We've also used our peer support that giving the peer support to the family members of the person who is struggling with addiction, which has been really helpful. I think it's sometimes a very lonely process to love someone who's struggling with addiction. So finding that support through the peers has been very helpful. Did that answer your question?
Sometimes our family providers are the most challenging because they're the expert of.
And they've seen. And I think they're the most burned, right? So they are also like, I think it's to get those folks back involved is super important. And they have a lot of heartache over what's gone on over time by the time they're seeing us. So for sure, 100%.
And I was thinking too, something that my social worker did that was really helpful within my family, just with my kids, is share my relapse prevention plan like Laura was talking about, but I shared mine with my kids. They're a little bit older. And so giving them the permission to call me out when they see something on that. Like my kids have been like, hey, you shut your door 2 days in a row, your bedroom door, what's going on? And they're fully comfortable doing that. And that's because we gave them the permission to do that. And I think that could work with any family member as well.
Judge Waterman?
So for parents who are members of Indian tribes or eligible for membership, the Wisconsin Indian Child Welfare Act applies. And there's special rules that keep the tribes involved in those cases. So if you have a WICWA case in family treatment court, how do you involve the tribes in the process?
I don't know that we have had a WICWA case in the time that we have had people that have Native American heritage but have not been enrolled or the tribe hasn't participated. We do have, I believe, language written into our policy and procedure about including the tribe. We have offered multiple times for folks to enroll, and we just have not had anyone take us up on it. So they would be a participant at the table.
And they would be involved in our treatment team part. This is that hour and a half that I spend with the treatment team. We talk about each participant, and there's lots of professionals that are involved. And so it's an easy way to get, the tribe involved, or, if they have their social worker or anyone else. We have normally we have a psychiatric person there. We have treatment providers there, parent aides, coaches that are there. We have a public health nurse that's there. Anyone who's providing services gives input, and it's really valuable. I mean, we've changed our ideas about what we're going to do with people because somebody goes, but did you think of this? We go, oh yeah, that's a great idea. Because it's not necessarily your first choice or your gut reaction. It's a collaborative decision about, I'm the one that's saying the things that are going on. It's either the good news or the bad news, but it's a whole group that's making that choice.
I'd also just recommend if you do have somebody who has Native American heritage, trying to weave that tribe into your governance structure to make sure that they're represented across those levels.
Kate?
Readmission. So we have in our policy and procedure manual that St. Croix County will readmit any past participant, whether they voluntarily withdrew or unsuccessfully discharged. Do you guys advise to have a 6-month waiting period or no waiting period? What do you guys have?
Well, nobody has ever wanted to come back. I don't get it. But we'd let them come back, and I wouldn't wait 6 months. We'd be like, join us. I think you'd be starting again. Like, you'd have to develop that sobriety over time. But yes, welcome back anytime.
We've talked about it for people who are leaving because we've begged them to stay, just saying, you know, if they came back, came a month afterward and said, I want to come back, we'd take you back. Our goal is to help these people. It's not a punishment. We want them to be in recovery for their life. And so it's very different than an adult court, which usually that's the end of it. We're here for the children. That's the other, I forgot to put it in my notes, but make sure when you do your staffing that the judge asks about the children, because sometimes you get so focused on the parents, what's happening with the children, because sometimes they're really struggling because of everything that's gone in life. So I try to remember this. I know sometimes people will prompt me, but I usually ask, you know, how are the kids doing? Because in ours, you know, the social worker's job is just child protection. The coordinator's job is really for the parent. All right. So when I have that social worker, how are the kids doing? And sometimes they're doing poorly in school. Or I had one, wouldn't talk to mom and dad, always placed with a relative. And after he saw that mom and dad had been clean and sober for 6 months, so, you know, he said, I'll never go back to them. He went back to their home because it was the aunt, the relative, gave him free reign. You know, he could do whatever he wanted to. He didn't like the rules, you know, that mom and dad were starting with rules, but went back. But I need to know that too, because that really impacts the parents too. And oftentimes, you know, when you do the motivational interviewing, you know, I'd say, why do you think, and I can't remember his name, why do you think he wants to come back home? Well, he knows I'm clean and sober now. You know, they're the ones that need, I know why he wants to come back home, because he now sees that mom and dad are clean and sober. And this was mom and dad, so it wasn't both. But I think it's really important to know what's going on with the children too.
Rebecca?
I have a question for Judge. We don't have the same kind of availability for court-appointed attorneys being involved in CHIPS cases at the time of TPC. I'm wondering if, in your experience, the existence of a family recovery or family treatment court has made any difference, do you think, in terms of counsel being more open to accepting those appointments?
You know, we've appointed counsel for a long time, even before we had the Family Recovery Court. But we also had what's called Road to Reunification. So it was a similar one, but every 6 weeks that we were doing. But we had a real buy-in because we'd met with attorneys beforehand saying, here's what we want to do. So they knew the program. And we have a regular group of about 5 or 6, but our big promise is you can appear by Zoom most of the time. If, you know, with a rural area like we have, I know you're more urban, but you still have rural. Attorneys just can't come in tomorrow because they've got something else, but they can often do a 15-minute hearing by Zoom, and they're willing to do that. That's made a huge difference, but you have to allow them to appear by Zoom. And then they call and talk to the people. They may not have met in person, but they will after that. $100 an hour, yep. Yep, and we also, we get the federal funding through 4D, so we get reimbursement for that. Yeah. Yes.
So we primarily use our in-house AODA treatment providers. I'd say things haven't been terrible for referring to other programs. We have people that sometimes want to drive over to, is it Amory? That's Programs for Change, for their outpatient treatment, intensive outpatient treatment. But it hasn't been too big of a barrier. I would say that was something we worried about at the beginning, but we've been able to find beds for people when needed, and people are engaging in their treatment with their providers. So. They can choose as long as it's like the recommended level. And I'd say even when people have been recommended into like a higher level of care and they're saying, I do not want to go to inpatient, we will try at a lower level of care because we want to meet you where you're at. Unfortunately, sometimes that just means we're delaying like the inevitable that we're going to be needing to make that recommendation in the future. But it has worked sometimes. So I know we had some folks that were still driving down to Arbor. So the people do have the ability to choose. Other questions? Medical assistance. Mm-hmm. The county will fund like the unfunded portion of the inpatient, like the food, and I'm looking at Jolie, she knows what this is called, room and board. But otherwise it's usually medical assistance.
So Barron County has always practiced that we do also fund services in-home for families through CHIPS cases, through tax levy. So when Judge Babler earlier was talking about when we think about when our grant's gone, what's going to be the cost, it's going to be us advocating, and we already have been to our county board, that we need to add the coordinator position to a fully funded county position, because everything else that we've done, the social work time, the drug testing time, the treatment money, the therapy money, we would have been doing regardless. We would have been doing that with a CHIPS case either way. And in fact, I could probably argue that it would have cost more, would have taken longer. Kids would have been out of home care longer. So that's where some of the funding is Department of Health and Human Services.
So Barron County's paying the room and board, you're saying, for inpatient, and then MA's covering treatment, basically. And that's all inside Wisconsin. You're not going across the border to Minnesota for any of that.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, I'll turn it over to Judge Waterman for some closing remarks.
All right, well, thank you everyone for coming today. It was very productive. I learned a lot. I hope you did too. As I was listening, I was just jotting down some of the key takeaways that I drew from today's conference. Recovery is different than sobriety. Alcohol gave me the wings to fly, but it took away the sky. Substance use is a treatable disease. Treat the disease, don't blame the patient. Parents are capable of change if you give them support. Family Treatment Court is an evidence-based program where the parents receive programs that help. It is a shift in responding. Don't ask, why did you do that? Ask, what supports are needed? Meet participants where they are. Nothing good happens after midnight. It's a 42-week program, but long-term recovery. Frequent contact with the judge increases parents' chances of maintaining recovery and reaching their goals. When I started achieving goals, I became motivated to achieve the next one. You're an inspiration, Amanda. And finally, have the courage to make a change. So thank you everyone for attending today. Drive safely home. Have a good night.